Good morning everyone. Basan tayo ng Bible guys. To Chronicles chapter 7, 8, 9 and John chapter 11 verse 1 to 29. Basa. Jesus encounters crucial events in Jerusalem. Lazarus becomes sick and dies. Hindi natin yan aabutin kasi hanggang 29 lang tayo. Chapter 11 verse 1. Now a man named Lazarus was sick, who was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. O, siya pala yung nag-wipe ng yung perfume, guys. So, the sister sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. When he heard this, Jesus said, the sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Then he said to his disciples, let us go back to Judea. But Rabbi, they said, a short while ago the Jews tried to stone you, and yet you are going back there? Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours of daylight? A man who walks by day will not stumble, for he sees by the world's light. It is when he walks by night that he stumbles, for he has no light. After he had said this, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him up. His disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better. Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. Sa verse 14, so then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Ang pawis ko sa noo, grabe na. Ulit, sa chapter 14, sa verse 14. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe, but let us go to him. Then Thomas, called Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. Jesus comforts Mary and Martha. Verse 17. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. 4 na araw na, guys. Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, God will give you whatever you asked. Grabe pawis, guys. Whatever you asked. Verse 23. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she told him. I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who was to come into the world. And after she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. The teacher is here, she said, and is asking for you. Sa verse 29, when Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. So hanggang dyan lang. At baka lumagpas na naman tayo. Hanggang 29 lang tayo ng dyan. 11:1 to 29. Grabe naman pawis ko. Uy. Pasensya na. Kaysa naman, buksan ko yung electric fan mapakaingay ng ito nga, pag lilipat ka lang ng page, dinig na dinig kayo dyan sa video. How much more yung electric fan. Minsan ko na inano yan. Tapos ang ingay-ingay. Okay, sa verse 1 ng chapter 7. 2 Chronicles 7, 8, 9 ang babasahin natin. Chapter 7, 8, 9. Basa. Sobrang talagang pawis. The dedication of the temple. When Solomon finished praying, fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. Kita mo guys yung ni Father God, through fire talaga. The priest could not enter the temple of the Lord because the glory of the Lord filled it. When all the Israelites saw the fire coming down and the glory of the Lord above the temple, they knelt on the pavement, with their faces to the ground, and they worshipped and gave thanks to the Lord, saying, He is good, His love endures forever. Then the king and all the people offered sacrifices before the Lord, and King Solomon offered a sacrifice of 22,000 head of cattle, and 120,000 sheep and goats. So the king and all the people dedicated the temple of God. The priests took their positions as did the Levites with the Lord's musical instruments, which King David had made for praising the Lord, and which were used when he gave thanks, saying, His love endures forever. Opposite the Levites, the priests blew their trumpets, and all the Israelites were standing. Solomon consecrated the middle part of the courtyard in front of the temple of the Lord, and there he offered burnt offerings and the fat of the fellowship offerings, because the bronze altar he had made could not hold the burnt offerings, the grain offerings, and the fat portions. So Solomon observed the festival at the time for 7 days, and all Israel with him, a vast assembly people from Lebo, Hamath, to the Wadi of Egypt. On the 8th day, they held an assembly, for they had celebrated the dedication of the altar for 7 days, and the people, and the festival for 7 days more. On the 23rd day of the 7th month, he sent, tama guys, basang-basa na yung debit ko. Buti na lang hindi siya halata kasi dark. Dedication of the altar for 7 days, and the festival for the 7 days more. On the 23rd day of the 7th month, he sent the people to their homes, joyful and glad in heart, for the good things the Lord had done for David and Solomon and for his people Israel. The Lord appears to Solomon. Ito yung sinasabi ko, yung writer ba, paano niya nakikita lahat ng gawain ni King Solomon? Saan naka-base? Kasi para talaga siyang pelikula guys na detalyado talaga. The Lord appears to Solomon. Verse 11. When Solomon had finished the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, and had succeeded in carrying out all he had in mind to do in the temple of the Lord and in his own palace, the Lord appeared to him at night and said, I have heard your prayer, and have chosen this place for myself as a temple of sacrifices. When I shut up at the heavens so that there is no rain, there is no rain, or command locusts to devour the land, or send a plague among my people, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then Then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to the prayers offered in this place. I have chosen and consecrated this place so that my name may be there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. As for you, if you walk before me, as David your father did, and do all I command, and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish your royal throne, as I covenanted with David your father, when I said, You shall never fail to have a man to rule over Israel. But if you turn away, and forsake the decrees and commands I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will uproot Israel from my land, which I have given them, and will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. I will make it a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. And though this temple is now so imposing, all who pass by will be appalled and say, Why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple? People will answer, Because they have forsaken the Lord, the God of their fathers, who brought them out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshipping and serving them. That is why He brought all this disaster on them. So, yun pala. Yung mga disaster, gawa yan ang pagsamba nyo sa mga Diyos-Diyosan. Ayan o, embrace other gods, worship and serving them. Kaya huwag na sumamba sa mga Diyos-Diyosan, mga other gods. Para walang plague, walang mga virus na yan. Sa chapter 8. Solomon's riches and wisdom. Solomon's other activities. Verse 1. So chapter 8, guys. At the end of 20 years during which Solomon built the temple of the Lord and his own palace, Solomon rebuilt the villages that Hiram had given him and settled Israelites in them. Solomon then went to Hamath Sova and captured it. He also built up Tadmor in the desert and all the store cities he had built in Hamath. He built Upper Beth Horon and Lower Beth Horon as fortified cities with walls and with gates and bars, as well as Baalath and all his store cities, and all the cities for his chariots and for his horses, whatever he desired to build in Jerusalem and Lebanon and throughout all the territory he ruled. All that people lived from the Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. These people were not Israelites. That is their descendants remaining in the land, whom the Israelites had not destroyed. The Solomon conscripted for his slave labor force, as it is to this day. But Solomon did not make slaves of the Israelites. For his work, they were his fighting men, commanders, and of his captains, and commanders of his chariots and charioteers. There were also King Solomon's chief officials, 250 officials supervising the men. Solomon brought Pharaoh's daughter up from the city of David to the palace he had built for her, for he said, My wife must not live in the palace of David king of Israel, because the places the ark of the Lord has entered are holy. On the altar of the Lord that he had built front of the portico, Solomon sacrificed burnt offerings to the Lord according to the daily requirement for offerings commanded by Moses for Sabbaths, new moons, and the 3 annual feasts, the feast of unleavened bread, the feast of weeks, and the feast of tabernacles. In keeping with the ordinance of his father David, he anointed the divisions of the priests for their duties, and the Levites to lead the priests, and to assist the priest according to its day's requirement. He also appointed the gatekeepers by divisions for the various gates, because this was what David, the man of God, had ordered. He did not deviate from the king's commands to the priests or to the Levites in any matter, including that of these treasuries. All Solomon's work was carried out from the foundation of the temple of the Lord was laid until this completion. So the temple of the Lord was finished. Then Solomon went to Ezion, Geber, and Elath on the coast of Edom, and Hiram sent him ships, commanded by his own officers, men who knew the sea. These with Solomon's men sailed to Ophir, and brought back 450 talents of gold, which they delivered to King Solomon. Chapter 9. The Queen of Shiva visits Solomon. When the Queen of Shiva heard of Solomon's fame, she came to Jerusalem to test him with hard questions, arriving with a very great caravan, with camels carrying spices, large quantities of gold, and precious stones. She came to Solomon and took sorry, duling na talaga. She came to Solomon and talked with him about all she had on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. Nothing was too hard for him to explain to her. When the Queen of Sheba saw the wisdom of Solomon, as well as, parang nabasa na natin to, guys. As well as the palace he had built, the food on his table, the sitting of his officials, the attending servants, and the robes, the cupbearers and the robes, and their burnt offerings he made at the temple of the Lord, she was overwhelmed. She said to the king, "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true, but I did not believe what they said until I came and saw with my own eyes." Talaga yung, na ano yung kasabihang to see is to believe. Nakalagay kasi, guys, I came and saw with my own eyes. And did not even half the greatness of your wisdom was told me. You have far exceeded the report I heard. How happy your men must be, how happy your officials who continually stand before you and hear your wisdom. Praise be to the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and placed you in his throne as king to rule to the Lord your God, because of the love of your God for Israel and his desire to uphold them forever. He has made your king over them to maintain justice and righteousness. Then she gave the king 120 talents of gold, large quantities of spices, and precious stones. There had never been such spices as those the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. The men of Hiram and the men of Solomon brought gold from Ophir. They also brought algum wood, and precious stones. The king used the algum wood to make steps for the temple of the Lord and for the royal palace, and to make harps and lyres for the musicians. Nothing like them had ever been seen in Judah. King Solomon gave the queen of Sheba all she desired and asked for. He gave her more than she had brought to him. Then she left and returned with her retinue to her own country. Ano ba yan? Ang layo-layo ng binabasa ko sa word. Solomon's splendor, sa verse 13. The weight of gold. The weight of the gold Solomon received yearly was 666 talents, not including the revenues brought in by merchants and traders. Also all the kings of Arabia and the governors of the land brought gold and silver to Solomon. King Solomon made 200 large shields, a hammered gold, 600 because diba, of hammered gold went into each shield. He also made 300 small ay, alam niyo ano yan? Maliit na ano, maliit na ipis. Ayun o. Gusto rin niya magbasa ng Bible. Dito na tayo sa verse 15. Ulitin nga natin guys yung ano, yung verse 13. Pasaway kasi yung alaga ko eh. Wala lang. Arabia. Ulitin ko na lang para hindi ako mawala. Solomon's splendor. The weight of the gold. Sa verse 13 guys ng chapter 9. 2 Chronicles chapter 9 verse 13. Solomon's splendor. The weight of the gold that Solomon received yearly was 666 talents, not including the revenues brought in by merchants and traders. Also all the kings of Arabia and the governors of the land brought gold and silver to Solomon. King Solomon made 200 large shields of hammered gold. 600 because of hammered gold went into its shield. He also made 300 small shields of hammered gold with 300 because of gold each shield. The king put them into the king put them in the palace of the forest of Lebanon. Then the king made a great throne inlaid with ivory and overlaid with pure gold. The throne had 6 steps, and a footstool of gold was attached to it. On both sides of the seat were armrests, with a lion standing beside each of them. 12 lions stood on the 6 steps. Sa verse 19. 12 lions stood on the 6 steps, one at either end of each step. Nothing like it had ever been made for any other kingdom. All King Solomon's goblets were gold. Alam niyo guys yung lagyan na ng ano ng alak. Goblets ang tawag doon. Were gold, and all the household articles in the palace of the forest of Lebanon were pure gold. Dati nahanap ko pa talaga to sa Google kung anong ibig sabihin ng goblets. Yung pala yung glass ng wine. Yung pag uminom ka, di ba meron tayong baso na maninipis lang. Goblets ang tawag doon. Yung merong stand. Were gold, and all the household articles in the palace of the forest of Lebanon were pure gold. Ngayon kaya meron pa kayong pure gold sa inyo. Nothing was made of silver because silver was considered of little value in Solomon's day. Tingnan mo guys, yayamanin talaga si King Solomon. Nothing was made of silver because silver was considered of little value in Solomon's day. So, 21 tayo. The king had a fleet of trading ships manned by Hiram's men. Once every 2 years, it returned carrying gold, silver, and ivory, and apes and baboons. King Solomon was greater in riches and wisdom than all the other kings of the earth. All the kings of the earth sought audience with Solomon to hear the wisdom God had put in his heart. Year after year, everyone who came brought a gift, articles and silver and gold and robes, weapons and spices and horses and mules. Solomon had 4,000 stalls for horses and chariots and 12,000 which he kept in the chariots cities and also with him in Jerusalem. He ruled over all the kings from the river to the land of the Philistines as far as the border of Egypt. The king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stones, and cedar as plentiful as sycamore, fig trees in the foothills. Solomon horses were imported from Egypt and from all other countries. So, ini-import pa talaga. Nag-import pa talaga sila ng mga kabayo. Solomon's death. As for the other events of Solomon's reign from beginning to end, are they not written in the records of Nathan the prophet in the prophecy of Ahijah, the Shilonite, and in the visions of Iddo, the seer, concerning Jeroboam son of Nebat? Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel 40 years. Then he rested with his fathers, and was buried in the city of David his father, and Rehoboam his son succeeded him as king. So hanggang dyan lang siya, guys. Bye everyone, God bless.